Hey guys, and welcome to the J&K Show. We are giving you a college football segment. We're going to talk the CFP. We're weeks and weeks away still, probably halfway through. And we're going to give you who we think each of the four bye teams will be, meaning the conference winners of the Big Four. We know we call it the Power Five, but it's the Big Four, the Final Four. We are going to tell you who we think each conference winner is going to be who receives a bye for the CFP. I think we're going to start off with the Big Ten because this is Big Ten country.
Hell yeah, it is, brother.
And I'm going to stay as a homer. IU will play Ohio State in the conference playoff, and they're going to beat Ohio State and be the number one team. IU's not losing a game. They're going undefeated in the regular season in conference. They're going to be the number one overall seed in the whole CFP. What do you think?
Hmm. Man, as much as I would like to agree,
Yeah,
both Ohio State and IU both still have to play UCLA, who is probably the hottest team in college football right now.
that is true.
Ohio State has an idle week, I think, this week, and then they play all of a sudden out of nowhere in the shit bowl, Penn State.
Yes.
3 or 4 weeks ago, I think everybody had this circled as possibly an upset for Ohio State. Not anymore. Uh, IU plays UCLA this week. It's going to be a tough out. So you want to see if they can, dog walk UCLA the way they've dog walked everybody else outside of Oregon. Then I think IU will pretty much make their claim that they're going to go undefeated the rest of the way and be in the Big Ten title game, probably against Ohio State. So they don't play each other in the regular season this year, but the only time that they would meet would be in the Big Ten championship game, and IU could beat them,
Mm-hmm.
but I just
Neutral
think
field.
neutral field. You're going to have a lot of IU fans here. Will pack Lucas Oil for
Right.
sure,
It'll really
and
not be neutral.
it's not going to be neutral. But Columbus isn't that far away either. When Ohio State makes the Big Ten championship game, there's a lot of Ohio State fans that pack the building. So
Yes.
given that, I would probably take Ohio State to beat IU in the Big Ten title game just because of their defense alone. I know IU's defense is pretty good, but Ohio State's defense is on another level. And when you got Julian Sayin, a sophomore QB, he's very, very accurate. I mean, as much as I hate Columbus and I hate Ohio State, that kid, it's undeniable. They have probably the best two wide receivers in college ball right now. You got Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. They are very, very good, and their running game is nothing to scratch your ass about. But they don't need it. I mean, they really don't need it. But when they do, they'll probably have it, just because that's how it goes all the time. And the only real game that I have circled for Ohio State that is a maybe is against Michigan, because they haven't been able to beat us. Last year was their best chance to beat us, and they didn't do it.
Yes.
So they have to come to Ann Arbor this year, and that is the only game that I have circled from them that they could lose. Now they could also end the streak as well. They could come into Ann Arbor and beat Michigan, but until they do, I don't even maybe think that they can do it. So we'll have to see what happens the rest of the way. But I think even a one-loss Ohio State gets into the gets into the Big Ten championship game, and I still think that they play IU. And so the winner of that game will get the first round bye, definitely, probably the number one overall seed in there as well. So I would take Ohio State probably to come out of the Big Ten.
So let me give you some more reasons why I got IU. Okay.
Because you like IU.
No. I looked
I
at
do too.
stat wise and all that. I think your second team right now is IU. You're pulling for
Yes.
them, right?
Yes.
So I think that IU has the better offense. Ohio
Yes.
State has the better defense. I'm also not going to rule. Doesn't Oregon only have one loss to IU?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to rule Oregon out. And the reason why is because I'm not sure how it'll break down for sure if Ohio State falls to you guys, which I have circled as well. It's such an emotional game, right? And that's the game they end the year with before they would then play the conference championship. It's such an emotional game that if they lose, I think they would have some confidence issues. because they should win against Michigan this year, right? They're the most favorite against Michigan than they have since they started losing to Michigan. Mm-hmm. So this is the most favorite that they've probably been in this last few year time span.
No. Last year they were a 22-point favorite, and Michigan went into Columbus and just tore them in half.
Okay, and Michigan still beat them. So now it's round 2 again.
Still beat them. Yeah.
So to me, there's a lot of emotion in that game. I totally forgot about that. My bad. Because Ohio State won the whole thing. Right?
I never forget.
For me, I'm looking at it and it's such an emotional game. If they lose, their confidence is not where it needs to be playing IU. No offense. That's the best offense in the Big Ten. So for me, I'm saying, that's a problem. If they beat you guys, finally we got back in front of Michigan. That's an emotional win. Now they're going to drop it to IU because of the high they feel. Either way you look at it, I'm feeling real good with IU. They're going to thump Purdue. So I just look at it and I'm like, what a nice, just solid, you're watching them have this just emotional game and you're going to thump Purdue. And then they have to overcome those emotions. All the heart beating 100 times an hour. You got to overcome that. I just think they'll lose. I really do. I just think they'll lose. Yeah. Also, Mendoza is this year's Heisman winner.
Oh, that's bold talk. Bold talk.
Mendoza is 22 or so touchdowns with only like 2 picks or something. Sand is doing really well, but he has better weapons. And Mendoza runs around a little bit. So he's got 2 more rushing touchdowns on top of leading the nation in touchdowns. So, yeah, Mendoza's this year's Heisman winner.
Yeah, he very well still could do that. I would argue the fact that I don't think it would emotionally hurt Ohio State to drop the game to Michigan because they did that last year.
And they still won.
And they went on the greatest playoff run ever and defeated Oregon, Texas, Tennessee, and, beat Notre Dame in the championship. And none of the games were close.
Yeah, but beat Michigan. Like, that's going to start to be a problem, right? It can't not be enough. It can't be nothing. It last year, but are they going to really be able to overcome it again? They're going to win the whole thing or be a formidable team again, even though they still couldn't beat Michigan? I don't think so.
I just don't think – I think that it doesn't matter as much now that it's a 12-team playoff. The game itself doesn't mean that much anymore as far as when the CFP was 4 teams – Ohio State and Michigan, they had to beat each other to have a shot to go. Yeah. And then you couldn't forget, you still had to win the Big Ten championship game too. So, yes, Michigan has been on a roll against Ohio State. When they've beat them, they've gone into the bowl games of whoever it is they're playing, and they've beat everybody outside of the Georgia loss and then the TCU loss. But, last year we dominated Ohio State in their house. And, it was only a 13-10 win, but their offense, as prolific as it was, they couldn't score and they couldn't move the ball on us. So they had to build on that. They didn't get to the Big Ten championship game because of that. That was their second loss. So they had a little bit more time to prepare. They knew they were going to make it to the 12-team playoff. They knew they were going to be a mid to lower seed. So they were going to have the game against Tennessee at their house was probably the best thing to happen for them because they just annihilated Tennessee at home. And that gave them the confidence to say, we can run the table here. Knowing that was probably going to pit them against Oregon, the team that beat them earlier in the year. They smashed Oregon. It wasn't even close. And then they just kept going, and they won the national championship. That's probably the only thing that saved Ryan Day's job, was the fact that they won the national championship. But if they lose to Michigan again this year, and if that's their only loss, I don't see it putting any sort of a damper on their season. And I still think they go to the playoff. I still think they can beat just about any other team that makes it into the playoff. Outside of maybe maybe Texas A&M would have a shot, or Oregon could have a shot against them. Georgia, I think Georgia matches up with Ohio State really well, but it just seems like that's the way it goes with those guys. Yeah. Even when they lose, they can still win. So them being undefeated, I think at this point, I don't see them losing to anybody outside of Michigan this season. So it's not really going to hurt them. And I think Oregon will pick up another loss before the end of the year. They still have to go. They still have to play USC. They got a tough game at Iowa coming up. So I think they'll drop one of those two, and then they end the year with Washington. So that's definitely a game they could lose as well.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I think
Eh.
the way Ohio State played us last year, they beat us pretty. Or no, Notre Dame beat us in the playoff, but yeah, Ohio State beat us.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten championship game. Right?
Yeah, last year IU was such a surprise they didn't even expect it. I think
Oregon played Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, correct?
No, it was Penn State, Oregon.
It was Penn State, Oregon. So Ohio State beat us before they played you guys then, right?
Yes.
So, and they beat us pretty handily, gave us our first loss, one of two that we took the whole year, right? Because we lost to Notre Dame. That's the thing that I was saying last year is, hey, newsflash everyone, IU lost to the final two teams as their losses last year. And
they beat Michigan last year.
We had our quarterback go down in injury late in the season, so we were having to play Jackson some. He was playing through injury. Mendoza is an improvement. This is a different quarterback.
Yeah.
I look at this and I say same coach, same system, a lot of similar players from last year, some new recruits. Elijah Surratt might be the best receiver in the whole college. He's
very underrated.
Moves the chains. He's a Keenan Allen type guy. He's just a chain mover.
Amen.
So I just look at that and like how reliable he is. IU runs the ball. Their defense is awesome. I'm just like, the one thing that IU's got is ain't nobody believe in them. Hardly nobody believes they can actually beat Ohio State. And I think that works for their advantage this year when they're carrying. They didn't have a Heisman guy last year, but they do this year. Him, Insane, and I think there's one for Miami kind of fell last week, but Carson Beck was in the beginning. But I feel like now it's between Sane and Mendoza. One of them's going to be this year's Heisman, in my opinion, because one of them's going to run the table and be undefeated, and maybe they get beat in the playoff, but they're going to be nearly undefeated and probably only have one or two losses tops if you count Michigan, and then if Ohio State loses in the CFP. But they're going to roll most teams. I like IU. I do. Yeah. I think that they are.
It's not a bad call.
Last year and more.
It's not ridiculous to think that the IU could absolutely upset Ohio State. They absolutely could. I will not put anything past Cignetti anymore. Like it's definitely a possibility. I just think, Ohio State has the pedigree and they have the experience of big time games.
Yes.
And IU still new to the party, so like they can absolutely.
I get it.
They can. Mm-hmm. And I think that if IU's going to make the playoff, and I believe they'll win a game or two. I would love to see a national championship run for our Hoosiers. I absolutely would love it.
But I just think football on its ass.
It would. It really, really would. And I would love to see IU make that kind of a run. But I just think they haven't had that experience yet. Now, they can absolutely go in and make a name, and they could beat good teams because they are a good team. They just beat Oregon and ended the nation's longest home winning streak there.
They were number 1 or 2, right, the whole time.
They can do it. No game is too big for them now. And I think getting beat the way they got beat at Ohio State last year kind of helped the coaching staff and most of the players learn this is the atmosphere that we're going to have to learn to play and win in. And they passed their first big test at Oregon. So let's just see them pick it up and pick it up and pick it up and keep winning.
Yes.
Keep Mendoza in that Heisman race. It would be nice to see a Hoosier win the Heisman too. But
that'd be awesome.
Just from what I've seen in the past, I know the moments.
I get it.
The moments they just never seem to be too big for Ohio State. They always seem to answer the call when they get put in those big situations. We'll just have to see. UCLA is going to have something to say when it comes to IU and Ohio State. I mean, UCLA could easily beat either one of them. So they're playing very, very good football. They're beating everybody's ass. They annihilated Penn State. So I mean,
that's true.
They can definitely come around and win the games. I think for sure. So it's not going to be a gimme like they thought it would be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is just last season, as good as IU was last year, you probably would have said, well, I think they'd lose to Oregon last year. And they lost to Ohio State. A lot of people might have said, well, I think they'd lose to Penn State. You'd have probably had a lot of people saying IU is most likely 4th in Big Ten last year. Well, turn around the next year, we have a better quarterback. We beat Oregon. Everyone knows we beat Penn State. We would be the favorite against everyone. And that maturity, that difference alone tells me, oh, shit, the cream of the crop, it is IU and it is Ohio State this year. It is those two.
Yeah.
Like, that was just the statement. When I seen how we played against Oregon, I was just like, holy shit, we're going. Like, we're going to be right there. We're going to have the opportunity to go. So that's
I just
great.
IU's the two toughest games that IU has this year work out in their favor. They're at home. They have UCLA at home this week, and then in a couple weeks they have Penn State at home. Or I think they go on the road to Penn State. But yeah, that's Penn State is a shell. They're so far down. They no longer have their coach. Their quarterback's out for the year. They're just so down right now. And when you get beat by fucking Northwestern, that has to tell you something about where that team's at right now. They're just not good. They played Oregon so well, and it came down to that last drive. They lose that game, and then to go to UCLA and just get walked, by a team who just fired their head coach and promoted another guy up to OC, and you let them just do whatever they want to you. And then you go and lose to Northwestern right after that. So, I mean, something had to be done there. So, yeah, Penn State was definitely not anywhere near what anybody thought they were. So, but you still can't look past them.
No.
So,
no, you can't.
It's going to be a rough game either way. But, those are the only two games that IU has left that I think could be trouble for them, but I think they handle UCLA at home, and I think they actually go to Penn State and handle them as well.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. The only other thing I can really say is last year to this year, you could definitely say IU is clearly better than they were last year.
100%, yeah.
Now the question is Ohio State better this year than they were last year?
Yes, I will say yes, because Will Howard, as decent as he played last year, Julian Sayin is so much better than him already right now, in my personal opinion. He's more accurate. So Will Howard was a dual threat quarterback who could throw if he had to, but Julian Sayin is a throw first guy, and he's very accurate.
He is not running around. He has like 30
He's
yards.
not running.
He's not. He's
So he's a good distributed, very good pocket passer, which is what Ohio State needs. So anytime you have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, you don't want to run. So they don't.
All right. Moving on. Let's cover the SEC because we all know they're going to have a guy in this year. My SEC, there's a lot you can choose, by the way. But I looked at schedules. I looked at so much in depth because the SEC was a lot harder to choose. I'm going to go with Alabama.
Ew, Greensboro, Alabama.
The reason is because Texas A&M has had a very soft schedule. I know they're third. I don't care for their schedule. They beat Notre Dame by 1. Notre Dame isn't as good as they were last year, in my opinion. They're still pretty good. They are still good. I don't think they're quite as good as last year. That's their only team they really played so far. So I don't like A&M. I think they would lose to an Alabama in the conference championship. The Alabama has played 4 straight ranked teams, and they've won them all like in control. They're in control of those games. 4 straight ranked. They only have 2 left. There's like going to be 8 teams. There's 8 teams now with just 1 loss. Honestly, there's probably going to be 5 with only 1 loss because the way the schedules have worked out, most of them don't really play each other. There's a lot of them that don't. So they're all going to end up with the 1 loss. So whoever it's ranked now is going to be crucial. I don't think Alabama loses another game. I think they go and face a Texas A&M unless they fall on their ass. They're going to face somebody. They beat Georgia. Clearly, Alabama is at least the second best team in the SEC. For me alone, that's like, well, if they're going to be in the game, they're going to win the game. So, yeah, and they're 2 hard ones that ranked. They're both home games for them, too. So they've already run through their gauntlet. They only have 2 ranked opponents left, and they're both at home. Alabama, man, they're going to get it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bama comes out of there. But the game that I'm looking at on their remaining schedule is the Oklahoma game. Oklahoma thumped them last year. They didn't have John Mateer. Yeah, they didn't have John Mateer last year, but the game was also in Oklahoma. It was in Norman. So this year, Alabama has the leverage of having that game be in Tuscaloosa.
Yes.
So Oklahoma, hasn't, they haven't had, the last couple games have been a little rocky. They did pick up a loss, but if they can figure it out, if Oklahoma can go unbeaten the rest of the way, I look for them to maybe at least be in the SEC title game.
I can
But
see
a lot of it,
two choices Oklahoma. I think their
yeah,
defense is as good as anybody's in the SEC. They're playing
yeah,
great.
a lot of it will stem from that
Yeah.
matchup, I think. But I mean, you can't sleep on Georgia either. Georgia's right there at 5. I think myself and along with probably everybody else in the world is sick and tired of seeing Bama Georgia for the SEC title.
But
But I mean, if they're consistently the top 2 teams, then I mean, what can you do?
yeah.
You have to beat them. Georgia's got a couple of tough matchups left. They got to play Texas, which I don't think Texas is going to even sniff the championship game.
Not this
But
time.
I'm looking at that last game against Georgia Tech. I know Georgia Tech's in the ACC, but at the same time, they're playing killer ball, dude.
They're playing good.
So don't sleep on Georgia Tech either. They're in a completely different conference. But if Georgia can run the table, then I think you're looking at it's going to be another Alabama Georgia matchup in the SEC title game. And I think even though Alabama beat Georgia earlier this season, I think Georgia would find a way to beat them in the SEC title game. So I will have Georgia coming out of the SEC.
Ooh, interesting. I don't think if Alabama doesn't lose another game, then you're saying Georgia and Alabama would play in the SEC, which means you would be expecting A&M, and I think that's the only one in their way currently, A&M. So A&M would have to fall out so that Georgia and Alabama can go for round 2. And in your mind,
A&M. I don't think A&M's going to remain undefeated. I think A&M loses to LSU this week.
Yes.
And then they have to come right back and go to Missouri, who's fucking way underrated. Missouri also has a big game against Vanderbilt tomorrow, so look at that one.
Ranked every fucking year, and I've always been like, they're just so mid. I will agree this year they seem a little better than normal. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yep. They are improved from last year.
Yes.
They lost a close one, last week, but I still think they're good enough to upset a couple of teams who maybe overlook them. I think, like I said, LSU does not have an offense. So, but I do still feel like they do good enough, and I think LSU upsets A&M tomorrow night, and then they can absolutely come right back and have Missouri beat them too, and that's 2 quick losses. And then they finish the year at Texas. And Texas A&M, Texas is always a close matchup too. So you could lose 3 of your last 5 and then definitely play your way out. And I think that's how it's going to happen.
Yep, I agree. I see what you're saying. I think, we could just get Bama, Georgia. I wonder about the Georgia Tech game. We'll go into that a little bit next for our ACC. But Oklahoma, Bama, seems like whoever wins that game will be playing in the conference championship. So there's that.
Yep.
So could be an Oklahoma, Georgia if they were to beat them.
Could be.
Those were good points. I agree.
Yep.
Moving on to the ACC. Who do you have coming out of the AC?
Man, right now, just because they're playing really, really well, I would like to think Georgia Tech will come out of the ACC, but you have to look at it. They're on a collision course with Miami for the championship game. It's probably going to be Georgia Tech, Miami for the championship. Unless Miami's got to play Stanford, and they just beat Florida State, so it's not a gimme. They could absolutely come out and fall on their ass, but I don't see Miami losing anymore this year. They got, like they said, they got Stanford, and then they don't play anybody else the rest of the year. So I would like to think it'll be Miami, Georgia Tech, and maybe if Georgia Tech falls off, then maybe a Louisville slides up there into that spot. Louisville just beat Miami.
Yes.
So that could be a possibility. But I still think it's going to become between Georgia Tech, Miami. And if Tech can run the table, if they can get that win at the end of the year against Georgia, then I don't see anybody stopping them. And I'm going to go out on a limb now and say Georgia Tech will probably come out of the ACC.
Wow. Okay. I almost picked them, but I know it doesn't hurt them in conference play, but I don't think they're going to beat Georgia.
Yeah.
That's just me. I don't think they will beat Georgia. I have Miami coming out because I think they have the best defense in the conference. And like you said, they're not going to lose another game. I think Georgia Tech is kind of like an IU last year, to be honest. And for them to be as good as they are, they're going to take that tough loss to Georgia like we did to Ohio State, They're still going to get in the playoff, in my opinion. But I think they could also lose to a Miami in the conference championship. Now, I think Georgia Tech would still find their way in on like 11 or 12, in my opinion. They still have an opportunity because they've had a great year. But yeah, I like Miami because even though Louisville just beat them, it was only by a field goal. Shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to lose another game. The only thing I could say is maybe Louisville could snub one of these teams and not allow them in because of that one loss. And if Louisville runs the table for themselves, maybe they would have something to say about who's in the conference championship. But I'm going with Miami.
Yep, and that's not a bad pick at all. I just don't see Georgia Tech dropping a game at all until they meet Georgia, and Georgia and Georgia Tech seems like it's always, even if Georgia Tech's having a down year and they're 7-4 or something like that, they seem to play Georgia tough, and they always have them down to the wire. So I think Georgia Tech could definitely beat Georgia this year. Georgia's kind of a little bit down, but
though.
Well, they just don't have the consistent quarterback play. Gunnar Stockton's pretty good, but it just seems like they're not as high powered as they have been in years past. So Georgia's definitely havable in the rivalry game this year, I do believe. And if Georgia Tech finds a way to beat Georgia, then I don't see how they can lose again and until they get to the playoff, So maybe the moment will be too big for them, but I think it will definitely come down between Tech and Miami for sure. But I think Tech can definitely beat Miami this year.
Okay. We shall see.
Yes.
The Big 12. Okay. Big 12. Who do you have in your mind coming out of the Big 12?
I don't even know if anybody knows who the damn Big 12 is anymore. I really don't know who's going to come out of the Big 12. The college football fan in me says Texas Tech.
Okay.
I think they're probably the best team. They just got beat by Arizona State in what I think anybody will look at as a pretty good upset.
Yes.
But they don't have any tough games really left either. They got BYU in a few weeks. BYU is one of those teams that somehow they always find their way towards the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it gets towards the end of the year, they remember, yeah, we're BYU. We're not supposed to win these kind of games, and I think Texas Tech will actually light up BYU when they play each other here in a few weeks. So I still think Texas Tech is the best team in the Big 12. So I would have them coming out.
I'm going Texas Tech. I think they have the best offense and maybe best defense in the conference.
No, they're the best overall team for sure.
Right, their home game to BYU, I think, is going to be huge for them. If they were playing in BYU, things might get a little more wild, but I think they'll take care of BYU at home.
Yeah. Those crazy Mormons.
Cincinnati is also home to BYU, so watch out for BYU. They have games they can drop, so I'm not saying they won't play in the conference championship, but they're going to have a little bit of a tough ending to their season to then win the conference championship, and I think that Tech will be there. They have the leader in sacks this year. David Bailey has 10.5 sacks. So he's looking to have nearly 20 sacks this year. I think he's excellent. I think he's going to be wreaking havoc. When you see a player like that, I think that is a game disruptor. So I have to stick with Texas Tech on this one.
Yeah, he'll definitely be playing on Sundays for sure. Yes. He is a freak, man. He can control that side of the ball, and having somebody like him, their offense definitely loves having a guy like him on the other side of the ball. So, I just think last week was such a fluke. I don't think Texas Tech drops any more games, and I think they get in at 11-1. I would see them. Maybe they play Cincinnati for the title. I don't know how that's going to work, but because Cincy's not a dog shit team either. But I just don't see them going that far. Texas Tech, I think, is definitely the cream of the crop in that conference.
I agree. So from last season, our first ever our playoff that we had last year, there was only 7 of the 12 that were Big Ten and SEC. So there were 5 teams that a lot of people might have argued and been like, they're not as good as the other teams. I would say this year, there should be 9 Big Ten and SEC teams in. Like I said earlier, I think Georgia Tech and Miami possibly could get in. I don't think they're going to get 2 Big I don't think anyone else is going to get in my personal opinion. It should be 9 SEC and Big Ten teams this season.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, a lot of people are going to be, bitchy about, those two conferences getting the most teams in, but
they're better.
They're also the most dominant. I mean,
They're
you
better.
can't help it. It's just better. Big Ten maybe not as strong overall.
Yeah.
But you definitely, the top teams in the Big Ten are right there, if not better than the top of the SEC. And it's been that way for a couple years now. The SEC doesn't just mow over everybody they play anymore outside of their own conference.
Right.
So, I mean, you had Michigan beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl in their title year, and then they turn around and beat Alabama in the bowl game again last year. Ohio State, I would put Ohio State against the top of any conference. I would put IU. I would even consider Michigan. Maybe Michigan couldn't beat every single SEC team right now, but I think that they would beat a majority of them. I mean, we have Alabama's number for whatever reason, and if Alabama comes out of the top of the SEC, then okay. Yeah. So I feel like even the teams that are not as good as they normally are right now, they could still hold their own against pretty much anybody in any conference.
Yeah. Another one to watch is maybe Notre Dame a little bit. I don't think they will have quite a good enough resume.
I don't think they make it. I don't think they make the playoff.
Now, what I thought was funny is I think I might be getting the teams wrong, but there was a game where Notre Dame, I think, crushed South Carolina, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And people were like, we don't think Notre Dame is very good. It was just South Carolina comments, right? Mm-hmm. And then the next week, South Carolina plays a tough game against some SEC, maybe LSU or somebody. And then the people are like, this is just the best conference in the world. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Like, hold on a second. Yeah, hold on.
It's the same kind of hypocrisy that you were talking about with like the Colts schedule. And it's like, oh, when we do this, oh, it's just this. And then the Chiefs, oh, they kill the Raiders. Oh, they're the best ever to do it. It's like, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah. A lot of bias, no matter where you go. It really doesn't matter. But I don't think Notre Dame is good enough. And I think their schedule beats them up every single year. Mm-hmm. They only play 2 ranked opponents, and they lost both of those games. So, I mean, if you're looking at it from the outside, Notre Dame's schedule is so soft now. It's like you can't put them in there and expect them to do anything against any of the other teams. Yeah. Are they talented? Yes, of course, Notre Dame's talented. But the rest of the way, I mean, they got Boston College up next, who's gross. And then you got Navy, who's a wild card. Navy's always a wild card. Pittsburgh, they're not the greatest, but they do play you tough. Syracuse, and then Stanford. I mean, if you're Notre Dame, if you're on the committee and you're looking at Notre Dame, I would probably say they have to beat everybody else for the rest of the year by 30 points in order for me to consider putting them in. Because the 2 games that you scheduled against ranked opponents, you guys fell on your ass. And you lost those games. And you could have looked at it last year when they got beat by Northern Illinois at home. It's like, okay, they fell on their ass for 1 game, but they did beat A&M at A&M last year. Yeah. So that was impressive.
They definitely have to cover the spread. For the rest
they have to demolish. Yeah. I think they have to.
Yeah.
So I can't. If Notre Dame continues to get in the playoff when they don't have a conference themselves, they don't have a conference championship game, get with the fucking times already. Stop being the snob of the NCAA. Stop thinking your shit has no odor to it, and join a goddamn conference, even if it's the ACC. They play ACC basketball. They're in the ACC conference in basketball. Be in the ACC conference in football and just join a fucking conference already. It's so asinine to me that they keep letting them get away with this kind of shit. And they just like, well, you don't have to play a conference championship game. You're an independent. But we'll get you in there just based on pedigree. Stop it. Just stop it.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to the Big Ten, it's kind of like the Big Ten's the AFC this year, and the SEC is like the NFC in the NFL because Big Ten's top heavy, and the rest of the teams I don't think would beat very many of the top SEC teams this year. There's probably 7 or 8 SEC teams that maybe are better than the 4th this season. Obviously, it's debatable, but I don't think the Big Ten actually, they're probably only going to get 3. I actually think the SEC is going to get 6, which is gross. But I honestly think that you got Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt. What if they don't lose another game? You know, the only loss they would have is Alabama, and then Alabama wins the title, conference title. There's so many scenarios where I'm just looking at it going, they might get 5 or 6. I don't know what the 4th team out of the Big Ten looks like, right? I mean, who would you say is the 4th team this season? You've got IU, Ohio State, Oregon. Who's the 4th that can get in the 12? I just don't know that there maybe is one this year.
I think if Michigan runs the table the rest of this year and they get in, they could probably get in at 11-2.
They'd flirt with that 12.
They may, yeah, they will flirt if they can win out. But I still don't think, even if Michigan is to run the table, I still don't think they make the Big Ten championship game. Just because it's still going to be IU and Ohio State when all is said and done.
If you give Ohio State their only loss, but that still doesn't get them in the tournament game. So
yeah,
you finish the year, what you're saying, 11-2. It could flirt with the 12. You beat Ohio State right at the very end. That gives a lot of people some like, whoa, number 1 team.
Yeah, that'll definitely boost them up. And then I think right now Michigan is ranked 25th. So if they run the table, you know, and you have a couple of these upper echelon SEC Big Ten teams maybe take some losses, you know, that'll propel them up. And especially if they're able to beat Ohio State, I think arguably you have to put Michigan in the top 10. So I'm not saying, you know, Michigan will be a 4 or a 5 seed in the playoff. I know they'll probably be more like a 10.
They'll be on the road.
But they will be on the road, and that may not vote well for them. But Michigan has played more road games this year than they have in years past. So they're getting a little bit of road experience. Playing in hostile environments at Oklahoma and at USC, they're the only 2 games that they've lost. So I think that they could.
The way I look at it, though, is I don't know. Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. Then we start talking teams like LSU or Ole Miss or Missouri. And I just look at that and I'm like, the more obvious or more likely scenario is an SEC team gets 6 versus the Big Ten gets their 4th. But I agree. Michigan runs the table. They're around 17 by the time they play Ohio State, or 15 when they play Ohio State. That could put them high enough to get in. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating the SEC teams. There's a lot of the top teams with 1 loss that they don't play each other. And there's like 5 teams right away that look like they should only have 1 loss. They would have to lose to a lesser opponent down the stretch to have more than 1 loss. So I'm like, well, there's 5 right there.
Yeah.
There's 5.
Yeah.
So
it just depends.
They already played their hard schedule, and there's a couple of top teams played each other, and they kind of swapped and this and that. And I just look at it and I'm like, well, what a lucky little break. Florida's not good this year. There's teams that just weren't good. So, like, I don't know. I think they're going to get 6. And they'll feel so good. We got half the teams.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, but I think that there are still a couple of SEC teams that are about to play their way out of it. There's a few ranked matchups within that conference that are still yet to come.
There's still a few.
You have, I think Texas A&M is going to have to drop 2 games to get them out of the playoff. I think there's no way LSU makes the playoff this year. I don't think they get in. Ole Miss, I think, will get in.
Right. So think about it. So Alabama, you do think they'll get in, right?
I think Alabama gets in.
Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M. Because they're just ahead by enough that you don't think they would miss.
Judging by what I said earlier, I don't think A&M makes the playoff. I think A&M takes 2 to 3 losses at the end of the year.
Okay.
I don't think A&M will make it in. I think Ole Miss will make it.
Okay, so Ole Miss, Vanderbilt.
They have a tough ending of the year too. I can't.
You're going to put Oklahoma at the 4th.
I will put Oklahoma. I will probably go ahead and throw Vandy in there.
Like if you got Vandy, Missouri, LSU, doesn't it feel like one of them gets in? So are they guaranteed 5? And you're kind of, when you really look at the scenario,
I think so. Yeah, definitely 5. Definitely 5 teams getting in. You know, and I think Vanderbilt will probably be the last team that gets in, just depending on what happens. You know, If Missouri can run the table also,
Exactly.
Missouri might make it. But I would have to say that last spot will either be Vanderbilt or Missouri. You can switch you go back and forth between the two of them. But then I think that's it.
If Michigan doesn't beat Ohio State, they're not getting in.
No.
So then it's like, who's getting in over the 6th SEC team? Is there a third team coming out of the ACC? I'm not so sure. Is BYU still getting in if they only lose one to Texas Tech or to Cincinnati? I don't know. I guess maybe. Does the America want BYU in at 12 when they could get another SEC?
No.
I just find it unlikely. So when you just described, it's like it's Michigan or it's an SEC team. That's what my mind is telling me.
Yeah, it would have to be, but Michigan has to win out. They have to win out. If you get 3 losses, you're not going. You're not going to the playoff with 3 losses.
They might need to cover the spread until they get to Ohio State, so they're winning those games well enough. They probably can't win them with last-second field goals, because what if their ranking isn't high enough, right? What if they only get up to 18 or 19 by the time they play Ohio State? Will that give them enough of a boost if they beat Ohio State last second? Like, what kind of improvement do they get for beating Ohio State? They kind of need to move up about 7 or 8 spots by the time they play Ohio State, where my head's at.
Yeah, Michigan has their next 4 games before Ohio State. Their next 4 games are definitely winnable, and they're games that they should win.
Yes.
We have Michigan State this week. It should be a blowout. Purdue next week should be a blowout. Then we go to Northwestern, should be a win. And I don't like playing Maryland before Ohio State, but Maryland and Rutgers, those 2 teams, I don't like playing them before Ohio State because it's always close.
Yes.
But still, Michigan should handle Maryland, and it should be a win. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying they have to cover, because Michigan is horrible about covering.
But that's my point.
They just are.
If they win 2 of those 4 by a field goal, how impressed are the committee going to be ranking and moving them up the ladder? If they're winning those games, what you just described, they are favorites for all 4. So if they're winning half of them by a field goal or some very short margin, how impressed are they going to be to move them? What if they only move up 1 spot that week?
Yeah, what I see is
it to do better than that, probably.
Yeah, I think it would be good enough if they just win the games. But I mean, Maryland's been a competitive team this year. They're no slouch. They are very competitive. But I would say they definitely need to throttle Michigan State this week. They definitely need to throttle Purdue next week.
Yeah.
And then they get a bye, and then they play Northwestern at Northwestern. They should be ready for that game.
3 of the 4
they should throttle 3 of the 4, yes.
So if they don't,
but
I don't know.
Yes, well, I mean, even if they don't throttle everybody, I think they still move up because they're winning games. They're winning and winning. They just keep winning, stack wins. Yes, and if you can make the case that Ohio State maybe loses to UCLA, then if you beat Ohio State and you're both 11-2, that could keep Ohio State.
Disaster.
There would be a disaster for Ohio State. Yes, it would be. But
would be so unsure, and it would cause such a stir if they're trying to choose between those 2. Michigan's beat them. Would it be 4 straight years or 5?
It would be the 5th straight win.
The 5th straight year. They won the title last year. He still gets beat by Michigan. Now they have the same record. They have the tiebreaker basically head to head. That would be a disaster because Ohio State would have spent almost the whole year at number 1 after beating Texas.
Yeah, but I think
he would with Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
I do think so.
No, they would if Michigan and Ohio State are both 11-2 at the end of the year, and Michigan has that tiebreaker with them for the head-to-head, then that would put Michigan and IU in the Big Ten championship game. But I don't think Oregon. I think Oregon's going to have 2 losses. So maybe even 3, but I don't think Oregon will be in the mix really. But I think if you have an 11-2 Michigan, a 13-0 IU, and you have an 11-2 Ohio State will still make the playoff.
You'll have a better conference record, is what you're getting at, because you guys lost to Oklahoma this year, so you'd only have 1 loss in conference in the 11-2, where Ohio State would have 2. So you would automatically push them out of the conference game, which gives you guys another chance to show the committee how good you are. So even in a loss, they would maybe – that's another thing to think, though, is another loss to IU in the title game, would that knock them out to 13 or 14? Like I would say you have to be a little impressed with Michigan's run at the end, but that's a third loss, so that one's like tough to know.
But it's a conference championship loss. You're kind of left with the Penn State effect at the end of last year. They got beat by Oregon, but they still made the playoffs, and they went on a hell of a run. They made the semifinal.
Yes.
So and they played Notre Dame very well. Mm-hmm. So I think 11-2. I think if you have the top three there in the Big Ten, you would still get Ohio State in. And this is worst case scenario. I think Ohio State probably should go undefeated the rest of the year. They should beat Michigan this year.
Yes.
But it's such a wild card game now that you have to look at it and you have to say that's the one that's circled. That's going to determine how their rankings go. So I think that this team that Ohio State has put together this year, they should run the table and they should get a first round bye. They should win the Big Ten, and they should you could make a claim that they should repeat as champs. So we'll see what happens, though. I see what you're doing there. Although it's backwards.
Is it backwards to you?
It's backwards to me. That's UI. There you go. That's a little bit better.
But it's backwards to me.
Well, sucks to be you, bud. But I'm trying to be unbiased here. I'm trying to be, I cannot stand Ohio State one bit, but I know that they're good. I know what I see.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to sit here and say, well, yeah, Michigan's going to throttle them at home by 40 points. It's not going to happen. It's always a close game. Even in our national championship year, Ohio State played us close. Yeah. So the game was a lot closer than I wanted it to be. But I think if you're Michigan, you feel good about going into any game with Ohio State now because you know it's winnable. They're not unbeatable. You've got a game plan. You have a formula. You figured it out, how you can keep these guys down for an entire game. Mm-hmm. So you just got to play your defense. You got to stay home. You got to not make mistakes. So that's what I think would be college football's doomsday scenario is if Ohio State drops the game against UCLA somehow, some way, and then they drop the game in Ann Arbor. Do you put a 2-loss Ohio State in over Michigan or over Oregon,
10 weeks,
who was number one all year long? Outside of week one, they were not ranked number one. So
I can only imagine some of the arguments in the media world, the big talking heads, like how the arguments would go. Because
I still think a 2-loss Ohio State team is better than a lot of other teams out there.
Yes.
And they still deserve a spot in the playoff, even if they have 2 losses. Look what they did last year. They made it. They were the 8th seed going into the playoff last year, and they went on a miraculous run.
I see what you're saying, though. In that circumstance, for CFP purposes, you're really stating that Michigan still gets in as the 4th, essentially, team, mm-hmm. and the Ohio State still gets in as well. And maybe they're both playing on the road at round 1, but they still get in because they're better than the extra SEC team you would have put in, or maybe it was another Big 12 instead of just one. Like, I get what you're saying. Honestly, that's how you get 4. There's a couple ways you get 4, and it probably has to include Michigan. So kudos to your buds, bud. All right, so
but they have to run the table. There's the only way they get in.
They
only way.
Disrupt a lot of stuff, though. That would be pretty good television for sure.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
No flag planting for Ohio State either, even though it's not illegal in Michigan. I don't think those little babies.
Yeah, I just remember because as demoralized as Ohio State was last year after that game, you got Jack Sawyer crying like a pussy on the field and everything, whining.
Like once you've gone for a decade or more of people planting flags in different circumstances, it's good drama on television. All of a sudden, no, you absolutely can't. It's like, did we win?
Did they win?
You can leave the field. We're going to stop on the logo. We're going to do whatever because, again, you've allowed it for so long. You should have got in there and said right away, no, you're not allowed to have antics on the field like that. To sit there and cater to Ohio State and let them make it like an illegal act and all this bullshit, it's like, oh, my God, the favoritism.
Yeah, it's a felony now.
Well, Baker and all these times people did it, it's like, no, actually, when they get tackled after the game, that's assault.
Yeah, it is.
That's where you fuck that up. That's assault. being tackled and holding a flag because you're holding a flag. Like, wow, what a criminal act. That was assault. So Ohio State can send their fucking guys to jail for the night. But no, actually, we're going to make it a felony. Don't you dare do anything. Flag's not even allowed in the building. And the fucking guy from Bleacher or whatever, he's not allowed in the building week 1. Fuck that guy.
Boo! Yeah, but I'm not worried about, if they say, even if Michigan is Ohio State's only loss and it's the end of the year, it's not going to derail them at all. They were still able to overcome that and go on that magic run that they had for the title. And they were 40 points a fucking game, man. I mean, you can't, if you do that in the college football playoff, that says something about you when you put up that many points against the cream of the crop of the whole entire league, and to just go in and dominate everybody every single game. I mean, that says a lot about their team. They're very, very good and they're very talented and they're always going to be. But, just for the sake of argument, this is their doomsday scenario. Is if they, and I'm serious, the only game that I see them taking a loss would be UCLA or Michigan or both. If they go into UCLA and they take those guys lightly, then they could be on upset alert, and they could be on upset alert against Michigan too. Those are the only 2 games where Ohio State needs to play their absolute best ball to send a message to everybody else saying, we're that team that you have to watch out for. So if they can beat UCLA and beat them handily, and then they can turn around and end the losing streak to Michigan, they have to be the favorite to win it all again.
Yeah, measuring stick to with the IU UCLA game this week to kind of just see how good is UCLA? Are they actually the 3rd or 4th best team in the conference this season? Where are they at? Are the 5th best team or something? Yeah, it's going to be an exciting finish. I think that I think Big Ten, for the sake of the Big Ten, I think everyone would like to see IU Ohio State just because they're the 1 and the 2 right now. I mean, you're kind of like, man, we really don't want to not be able to see that game. We've seen Ohio State, Michigan every year for how many years, Jay?
A while. It's been a while, and I'm glad Michigan didn't have to play IU this year. I'm really, really glad. But if you're a Big Ten, just a Big Ten fan, let alone rooting for a specific team, but I would love to see IU Ohio State just to see where IU measures out, because you got, last year it looked really bad, but there was some element involved into the game. You know what I mean? It was really cold, wet, nasty, windy game. So you would like to see how Indiana will play against Ohio State at Lucas Oil, a dome, neutral.
Yeah,
so I would really like to see that, because I think that they would be able to play fast there on the turf, and I think Ohio State would have trouble keeping up with them. So
that would have a suite probably, and they'd be rocking.
Oh yeah, that place would definitely be rocking, and I would be excited for that game if that's indeed what we get.
And it just feels like the way the state of Indiana has been over the last calendar year. It's just like, oh yeah, it's happening. Let's fucking go. Like we're gonna have the place rocking. We signed for WrestleMania. We had the Royal Rumble. I mean, there are so many things that have been going on in the last year, and it's just like, oh shit, Colts are good now. Now IU's good at football. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be really good. So to recap, I got Big Ten. I got IU. You have Ohio State. I have SEC. I have Bama. And then you have Georgia. Sorry. Georgia. SEC, you have Georgia. ACC, I have Miami. You have Georgia Tech. And then we both, in the Big 12, we have Texas Tech. So we shall see how it plays out. Thanks for watching. That was our first college football of the season. We will probably do another when we're a lot closer, but this was just our preliminaries as things shake in about midway through the year. So we'll see you later, and thanks for watching.